Hey everyone, it's Austin here from Sitemap. I just wanted to make a quick video with some tips for e-commerce companies who are looking at investing in SEO or wondering what would an SEO campaign look like? What should I expect when I start one? What should I do? Who should I hire? What should I not do? So I wanted to just give some, tips. I know every store is a little different, but I think in general, these will at least steer you in the right direction as you start this conversation. So, first off, I think one of the main tips I would give stores is to work with someone who knows e-commerce. So, yes, it's fair to say that the principles of good SEO apply no matter what type of website you're working on, right? But the strategies that you'd actually use to rank an e-commerce store versus a B2B store versus a local store versus a marketplace and whatnot are going to be very different. And so for e-commerce companies, work with an SEO, work with an agency who has proven e-commerce experience. And a lot of the reason for this is because the strategy you use is going to needs to be tailored to your store specifically. So you don't really want to try to educate someone on how e-commerce, websites work. um, an e-commerce SEO is probably going to need to know certain types of SEO more so than others. You're going to need certain things, especially in the beginning of a campaign, that are going to be different than like a local store or a B2B company. So work with an SEO, work with an agency that has e-commerce experience, and hopefully you can get results a lot faster that way. So the second point kind of ties into the first one, but just understand that when you start an e-commerce SEO campaign, you're probably going to have a different strategy if you are a smaller store versus if you're a mid-size or larger store. Now, I consider mid-size to be, companies that have over, probably 2,500 SKUs, maybe 100 categories or so. The bigger the store is, the more technical SEO is required because you're just serving Google a whole lot more URLs. You've got more categories, you've got more filters. You're trying to get Google to index certain pages and ignore others. So there's a lot more technical SEO that goes into that than a smaller store, which if you just don't have a lot of products on there, the technical setup, the technical SEO work for your site is going to be a lot smaller. So just in the beginning, just understand that the strategy you get is probably going to be more focused on technical work if you are a mid-size or larger store. Even if you think though that your technical SEO is up to date and you had a developer go through it, your developer thinks everything is fine, I still recommend at least starting your campaign out with a lot of technical work. A technical audit could be a great idea. But that's where kind of the difference is. And again, why I recommend working with an e-commerce agency or consultant is because they're going to understand what to look for and they're going to know the right strategy and the right approach for your site. And oftentimes you're going to need more technical than work than you might need, like content right away or link building or what have you. So the third tip I have is understanding that optimizations for your e-commerce store are going to be on your site. They're going to have to do with the technical markup, the schema markup. They're going to have to do with like your meta titles, how you title products, categorization, product descriptions. All of that is kind of like on-page SEO, optimization of your PDPs and your PLPs and whatnot. But then you also have this other thing, which is the Google Merchant Center and your shopping feed. And so we don't always fully know when Google uses data from your site to rank product pages versus when the algorithm uses your shopping feed to show your products in certain places. But the goal, or one of the main goals in an e-commerce SEO campaign, is to get your product pages to rank in those little sections where it's like popular products, or in the Google Shopping tab where it has all e-commerce products. So again, a lot of the work there is technical, but understand that you are doing, to some extent, optimizations on your actual site. And then you have this other thing, your shopping feed, which you need to consider. Now, most stores, most platforms, I should say, will sync the work that you do from your store to your feed. So you may not have to worry about that. But if you have more of a manual feed, a curated feed, you just have some other kind of variable there, you might want to consider if you're not seeing the success that you want, you might want to consider looking in that shopping feed to figure out what are you loading to Google in the Merchant Center? What are they seeing? And is it drastically different than what you're putting on your own website? They should align. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is about keyword intent. Now, this applies no matter what industry, what type of site you're working on. We have to understand the intent behind a target keyword we want to rank for. And this is particularly tough though and challenging for e-commerce stores, because a lot of times the keywords you might want to rank for, they're not necessarily going to show e-commerce stores, or they're not going to show product pages maybe, or collection pages or whatnot. They might show like information, they might show affiliate type links, they might show roundups or reviews, they might show videos. So when you're doing your keyword research and you're saying, okay, these are the keywords we want to go for, we want to rank for like these 30 keywords, these 40 keywords. Obviously, if you're working with a seasoned SEO expert and e-commerce, SEO person, then they should be able to understand this. But just from your perspective, just know that it's not always going to be about optimizing the content that you have. That's obviously a lot of it, but some keywords, the intent behind them is information. So you may be asked to write new content. You may need a new piece of content to get on Google's page 1 results, because maybe the keyword you want to rank for isn't a product page or a category page. Maybe it's an article, maybe it's a roundup or a list of reviews, right? So on that note, you may need to write new content. You also might consider, sometimes what we do is, if we feel like, hey, the investment for you to get on page 1 with your own website is going to be super high, right? So we're going to have to write a piece of content, we're going to have to build a bunch of links, we're going to have to wait for the algorithm to get it, blah, blah, blah. Or we could just go and we could find a spot in an existing article on an existing website, and we could try to get a listing in there somehow. We do that a lot too. So that's kind of like link building or off-page SEO. Just kind of consider that there's multiple ways to get your site on page 1 of Google. You might need to create new content, or you might need to just take advantage of somewhere else that already has a ranking for the keywords you want and try to get your company, your products listed in there. So, the last thing I would say, as far as Google, so in the same vein about technical work and kind of how algorithms work, SEO works for e-commerce stores. Yeah, it's helpful to know that categorization is a big deal in e-commerce world, especially for bigger sites. So, category pages, collection pages on Shopify, listing pages, as a lot of stores call them, those are the ones that tend to rank for like more broad keywords that get a lot of traffic for e-commerce stores. So it might come to a place to where you kind of take inventory of your current categorization, and then the agency or consultant or what be it recommends creating new categories. So always do keyword research around categories in the beginning. That's a huge place that a lot of stores overlook. They'll oftentimes put multiple products into like one super broad category, where sometimes breaking out that category into subcategories is beneficial from an SEO perspective. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's a key part of this as well, is categorization. And, understand that's how sometimes you can get more traffic from Google, is just looking at your categories. So like I said, a lot of this is technical in nature. Yes, there's content that can go on e-commerce stores. Of course, like we write content all the time. We recommend content for e-commerce brands. But a lot of what you're looking for, especially if you're a mid-size or enterprise level store, you're going to be looking at technical SEO, more on-page SEO, categorization, rich, your markup, your schema, all of those things. That's really going to move the needle for most stores when it comes to SEO. And hopefully, you can find a good agency. If you're looking for one, my agency Sitemap, you can visit us at sitemap.io. We've worked with a ton of e-commerce stores, from like, mid-size, smaller Shopify stores, all the way up to some of the biggest brands in the world. Help them with a ton of stuff, have a lot of case studies, have some really good testimonials and referrals. So hit me up if you need some help with SEO if you're an e-commerce store. And if you got any questions, let me know too. and I would be glad to take a look, get back to you. All right. Thanks.